Hi, welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. Today we wind up the conversation with Jim Murphy. He'll be sharing more of his amazing collectibles and memorabilia, as well as stories and insights into the early days of the Beach Boys. Before we get started, I wanted to once again recommend Jim's outstanding book, Becoming the Beach Boys 1961 through 1963. I also wanted to recommend his website, becomingthebeachboys.com. I'll leave a link for that in the video description below. You'll want to check it out. There's a lot there, including a lot of information that didn't make it into the book. There are more interesting stories. There are podcasts. There is an illustrated and annotated list of early Beach Boys gigs. There's even a discography of Candix records. And if you watched last week, Jim explained how it came to be that the Beach Boys Surfin' was reissued as Candix 301 in 1962, a numbering mistake. You can find out what the original Candix 301 record was in 1960 on Jim's website, along with much other very interesting information. I hope you'll check it out. So let's resume. We're going to go right back where we left off with Jim sharing more of his amazing and in many cases absolutely unique and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Please enjoy more with Jim Murphy.
Surfing looked like in Canada. So this is surfing on.
Oh,
London
really?
record.
On London?
Yeah. So it was a pretty good sized hit, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that it got picked up by London Record in Canada, is kind of cool. And the B side is Luau. B-side is Luau.
Okay.
So just like just like the
Yeah.
American version.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
very
so
strange
that's
looking.
surfing. And then this first one is a telegram from Bob Dix in his home in Fresno, California, to Al Levine of Alco Engineering, authorizing the pressing of Surfin' on X301. So this is when he was in a kind of a time pinch. The first press run, again, probably 10 to 12,000 copies of Surfin' on Candix 331. That has sold out. The record stores are clamoring for more copies. It's going up the charts. He runs out of money to press more. He comes up with a subsidiary of X Records. He calls it X301, but he's up in Fresno and he has to telegram from his home authorization to a company called Alco. They had their own pressing plant. They probably talked on the phone, and he says, this is to confirm conversation and pending written contracts that X Records, a subsidiary of Candix Enterprises, agrees to be distributed by Alco Research and Engineering, only on the master record entitled Surfin', backed with Luau, 10 cents net per record. And the Beach Boys are and will remain the sole ownership of Candix Enterprises.
Wow.
So the Dix brothers, Alan, Bob, and Richard, the twins, and Sherman, those are the four Dix brothers that own Candix Records. They contested later on that they own the Beach Boys. So when the Beach Boys go from Candix to Capitol, that caused a lot of consternation for Haidt and Dorinda Morgan a little bit, who thought that March 29th, 1962 letter of intent and agreement from Murray Wilson gave them a financial share of the Beach Boys. And the Dix brothers thought they had financial interest in the Beach Boys too because of the first record. Of course, the Dix brothers, to their eternal dismay, never signed the Beach Boys to a recording contract. So they didn't have a legal leg to stand on, actually, but they fought it for years. Those are kind of cool. And I've got other things here too. That one of these is from Murray Wilson, actually, to Soupy Sales. It's a telegram from Murray Wilson thanking Soupy Sales for playing Surfin' on his television show.
Oh, wow.
You can hear Murray saying this. Bless your heart for playing our song Surfin'. We appreciate it very much. The Beach Boys, all five of us. Yeah, but he was kind of savvy that way. He's like, okay, Soupy Sales played our song.
Oh, yeah.
This is just Surfin'. Yeah, this is way before they become famous.
Yeah.
Here's a cool piece here. This is Brian and Al Jardine's graduation program from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
Wow.
And then inside it's just your typical high school program, name after name after name, but they're there alphabetically. This is a handbill for one of the early shows, and it says the Beach Boys, and it also talks about the fact that they're playing in person and singing their hit tune, Surfin'. This is actually one of the first shows I think they did outside of the greater Los Angeles area. They went down to a movie theater, the Academy Fine Arts Theater in San Diego. Jardine was with them because I remember playing the show. And then when they drove back from San Diego, they stopped at a party at somebody's house. and they played them Surfer Girl. And I think people snickered at it or they didn't fully appreciate it or
Oh,
whatever. Yeah, and I'll always remember that and being a little, a little toasted about that actually.
yeah,
So,
that's interesting.
and to jump way forward from the 62, 63 period, a promotional thing for a sail-on sailor. It's a little Navy hat,
Oh,
apparently issued for sail-on sailor back
yeah,
in 73, probably. It would never fit my big egg,
yeah.
my big noggin, but
Wow,
it's very
never knew
tiny.
those existed. How cool is
I
that?
know. This is an oddball piece, actually. A
Yeah.
little.
Wow, I love that
So,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, very
So
crazy.
cool.
So, and then there's a funny story with this, actually. So when this came out, I had to have
Oh
one.
my gosh. There it
I
is.
have one. I didn't get it autographed though. The ones that have Brian Wilson's autograph go for a crazy amount of money
Yeah.
now. He signed some of them. I don't know how many. But I
Yeah.
bought one. I never opened it, whatever. So one Christmas I go up there. So I take a lot of grief from my family for being a Beach Boy nerd.
Yeah. Hmm.
And if you're Irish, you know what I mean. The Irish are tough on their loved ones.
Yeah.
So I go up for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I'm talking about the Beach Boys and the book I'm writing, and the book came out. And I think I brought this with me one time, and then I referred to it as the Brian Wilson action figure. And my nephew Kevin, my sister's second boy, he said, "Uncle Jim, let's be honest, that's a doll." That's a doll. I said, no, 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 no. It's an action figure. It's an action figure. He
Yes.
said,
Yeah.
no, it's a doll.
That is
It's a
so
doll.
cool. That's great. Very cool thing.
Here's a cool piece here. This is I'll have to step back. This is a poster. It's on a piece of heavy wood, actually. It got
Oh,
adhered to a piece of heavy wood. And I am reluctant to try to separate it from the wood
right.
unless I know what I'm doing, because I don't want to ruin this.
Sure.
This is the only one I think in existence that survived, actually. This is the Beach Boys playing the Palladium August 19th, 1962, opening up for Dick Dale.
Wow.
So
Very cool.
that's a cool piece. That was a concert I didn't know existed. So that was
Yeah.
another one. Oh, okay. You start plugging in the dates. And actually, in the early days, you got to remember, at least 3 of the band members were still in high school. So a lot of those early days could only be on weekends. And here's a cool thing. When this shirt came out, when the Pendleton Company reissued the Beach Boys shirt, and Mike Love did a lot of promotions for it, actually, in the calendars.
Yeah.
And they called it Beach Boy Plaid. They no longer call it Beach Boy Plaid, I think, for legal reasons. They call it Surfer Plaid. When it first was issued, they called it Beach Boy Plaid. But they had this in their stores. So this is like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it looks like a surfboard.
Oh,
very
that's
thin.
very cool.
Yeah, very light, but it's a little Pendleton kind of thing with the iconic image of them
Oh, yeah.
on the surfboard, and then the Pendleton woolen mills. So I had to have this, of course.
Yeah. Oh, how cool is that? It's very cool.
So here's another cool piece of memorabilia. This is the copy of the royalty check for surfing.
Oh.
So this laid to rest the rumor that they got $900 for the royalties, and that Murray Wilson threw in $100 to bring it up to $1,000, which when divided by 5 would give each of the fellas $200. So that story was entrenched in Beach Boy folklore for years and years and years. And no one really remembered.
Yeah.
Okay, they got $900. Murray kicked in 100. Sounds reasonable. Everybody gets $200. Well, this check shows that $990 was the royalty. So Murray Wilson kicked in $10, not 100. Not a big difference, but kind of humorous.
That's really interesting.
And the letter is from the Beach Boy attorney, Avril Passero, who was an entertainment attorney in Los Angeles at the time. He was long gone when I was writing the book. I couldn't talk to him, but this was from their attorney to Murray Wilson, enclosing the royalty check from Height Morgan. That was a nice find.
That's cool.
And they probably did get robbed on royalties. The Beach Boys, most notably Al, has always reported that they did some kind of a shell deal there with the royalties.
Yeah.
And I think he's right, because I don't think they probably ever got any money from the sale of Candix 331, the first iteration of surfing. They probably never saw any royalties from the sale of X301, the second version. So I think the only royalties they got were on the Candix 301 Herb Newman era record sales distribution deal. Newman was more of a higher level record guy, I think, than the Dix brothers were. And he probably did things by the books, and he had actual accounting. The letter says that they sold 33,000 copies of Surfin' on Candix 301. And that's what the royalties represent, probably. So I think they did get short change on their royalties, first record. So
not unusual.
Bitter but important lesson. I had a couple of goals with the book. One was to tell the truth. One was to not insert myself too much into the story and just try to put as many dates and structure to it and what was the chronology and just let the facts fall where they may. But then also, they're all human beings and they're young. And who was Murray Wilson? He's got 3 boys, close in age. He's got a 2-bedroom bungalow. He's a somewhat frustrated songwriter. He's had some success, but he wants more. He's struggling with his own business, not an easy way to make a buck. And he's ambitious. And he has some foibles. Murray was, you know, Murray's a complex character, like most people are. He's a 3-dimensional human being. He often gets maligned, perhaps justly so for some of his over-the-top discipline. But I always look at it like this. On a single salary with his own business, he had 3 boys close in age, and they never really were denied anything. Brian gets a car for his 17th birthday. He gets a Wallensack reel-to-reel tape deck for his 16th birthday. He meets the 4 freshmen at a club in downtown Los Angeles. Probably not a big expense, but he meets them. Carl gets a guitar for his birthday. Dennis gets a go-kart for Christmas. Brian had good clothes. He wore Florsheim shoes per Al Jardine. He was a natty dresser. In the mid to late 50s, on one salary, of course, the economy was different than I guess families could do that. But the boys were afforded a lot of things, I think, that put that into motion. Was he a hard disciplinary? I guess. I wasn't there, probably. I mean, Brian has said that. I have no reason to disbelieve him. Also, a lot of the bad things said about Murray Wilson come from Nick Venet in that 1971 Tom Nolan article in Rolling Stone, the 2-parter, which was a landmark article.
Right.
But Venet had a reason to kind of denigrate Murray Wilson. Nick Venet is in his early 20s. He's the young, hot producer, A&R guy for Capitol Records on the West Coast. Gary Usher described him as really slick. Slick back hair, French cuffs, nice suit, really slick record guy, right? He's got the Beach Boys. This was their new youth market group. Capitol Records single sales from June of 62 to December of 62 went up 31%. Not entirely due to Surf and Safari, but also helped by the fact that this is how they were going to market to young people. Not Les Paul and Mary Ford anymore, not the 4 freshmen. They were moving into the youth market more, and they needed that. They knew they needed that. Eventually, Brian says, listen, I don't want to go into Capitol Tower and have Nick Venet get executive producer credit when he's really not doing anything except ordering the musicians and booking the studio time and deciding when we're going to break for lunch. I'm really producing the records. And let me do it with Chuck Britz at Western or some other studio. I'll deliver you a ready-made record. And that's what he does. And Capitol says, well, this is great. We can just put this right on the air. And this is where Brian is groundbreaker because he gives future artists control over their songs, their recording, how they're going to sound, what they're going to be like. But that's not good for Nick Venet.
Sure.
If you're Nick Venet and you're the young, hot, A&R guy responsible for Capitol's youth sound, that's not good. So Venet, very tellingly, I think, and I don't know what the truth is, but by October of 62, Venet is gone from Capitol Records. Now, I don't know if he just got fed up with Capitol and breaks off as an independent A&R guy and producer, or if Capitol got disenchanted with him. I was never able to tell what the truth is, actually. Venet's brother, his older brother, is up in Baltimore, and I interviewed him. We got together for coffee and lunch, and, great guy, showed me all kinds of family photos, what it was like for Nick to leave at a very young age from Baltimore, Maryland, to California. So he filled in a little bit more of the Nick Venet story for me with photos and things like that. But his older brother, he would laugh and chuckle about him, and he loved him, of course. And he said, that was just Nick being Nick. He said Nick was a showman. Nick was a showman. Nick was over the top. He was, So I was like, well, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
So, Murray and Brian put Venet in a very delicate situation with Capitol. And as I said, for whatever reason, by October 62, Venet is gone and he's producing independent records. And he has a very successful career. I mean, Venet has produced, many, many records.
How long was Nick Venet producing? What were like late Nick Venet?
Oh, I think right up probably into I've got records of his probably going into the late 70s.
Oh, yeah?
80s. Yeah, so a good 20 more years, maybe. The other thing we talked about is why did Brian do so many outside productions? His admiration for Phil Spector at that time and songs like He's a Rebel and all the work he did with the Crystals, and he just loved that music, and of course, Be My Baby. So he's looking at Spector as somebody to really emulate and admire and aspire to. So I think he's thinking Spector, doesn't have just one group. He doesn't have the Crystals or Ronnie Spector. He's got a stable of artists. Right. So I think Brian wants to emulate that. I think he also wants to emulate a little bit of Carole King because The Locomotion, which is a huge hit, #1 hit in August of '62, right in the middle of the Beach Boys recording their Surfer Safari album, and they just love it. Him and Gary love it. They write The Revolution, basically inspired by The Locomotion.
Oh,
The
okay.
Locomotion,
Never put that together. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great song. It's a dance craze, and they're like,
Right.
"Well, what can we do?" So they write The Revolution, and it doesn't do anything on the charts. And that comes out, I think, somewhere in September of '62. But it's Brian, influenced by Carole King, who's a great songwriter at that time, and Phil Spector having a kind of like a stable of artists that he can produce. The irony, of course, is he never has a hit. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's, Glenn Campbell with Guess I'm Dumb or all the Honeys records, and they're wonderful records. I mean, they're great records. They sound fantastic. They just jump out of the radio speaker today, even. But he never has a real big hit. Sharon Marie, the Castells, of course, Surf City was his song to begin with. Jan Berry finishes it, but it was his song, I think, initially.
Right.
The irony is that's #1 when Surfing USA stalls at #3. I Do, great song. I mean, I didn't know the Beach Boys had recorded a version of I Do until the Twofers came out in the early '90s. But great song. I loved I Do. But I think that's what he must have really enjoyed, the working with different artists. What he could do with Sharon Marie or Bob and Sherry or the Castells or Jane and Dean was different than what he could do with Carl Dennis, Mike, and Al. Now I'm working with my brothers and my cousin and my buddy Al. But I'd like to branch out. So I think he loved it and enjoyed it. And, also, what's been written about Brian, I think it's largely true based on all the interviews with him, is he wasn't a numbers guy. He didn't care whether it was a #1 record or if it made $1 million or if it made a lot of money. I mean, I'm sure he enjoyed making money and having a comfortable lifestyle, but he wasn't motivated by money. Like, I'm going to sit down and write a #1 record. If it goes to #1, great. Let's make a good record.
Yeah.
In the year, in '63, they had 3 full-length albums and 7 consecutive hits in '63.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Thanks so much for your time and pulling all
Anytime.
that interesting memorabilia.
Anytime.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I truly enjoy talking to you. It's just phenomenal. Your knowledge is unparalleled.
I love talking to you, Steve, too. You're a great guy. I love hearing your voice. You got a great radio, TV voice. You're really skilled with what you do with your channel. I'm thrilled to be back. I will talk to you any day of the week.
Great. We'll do it again soon.
For as long as you need.
Thanks.
So I hope you enjoyed that. Before we go, I just wanted to once again let Jim Murphy know how much I appreciate him lending his time, talents, knowledge, and memorabilia to the channel. Also, for his patience with my many follow-up questions and requests over the last couple of weeks. Thanks very much, Jim. Hope we can talk again soon. Next week, we'll move just slightly further into the future, talking about U.S. pop culture in the first 3 months of 1964 and laying the groundwork for a discussion of the Beach Boys Shutdown Volume 2. Hope you'll join us for that. Hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to your comments. Please hit like and subscribe. Have a great week, and we will see you next time. Bye.